So my name is Peter Gyorgy. A pretty hard name to pronounce with the Hungarian accent, but still here I am representing BalticNOG. So we are a flow analytics company. We've been doing this for a little bit more than 10 years now. And yeah, I just want to give you a quick tour how we can actually couple flow and probe data information, how you can actually utilize that information or make more use of it. As I think a lot of the people here are from network operators, ISPs, any kind of service provider. Basically, it's important for you that all your customers are experiencing no latency, no jitter. They are experiencing good services, whether it's gaming, whether it's any kind of online banking, financial, whatever services we are talking about. So what is the challenge? Wait, yeah, now it's good. So we have the challenge that we want to monitor more than 20 egress points. This can be a lot of time costly and inefficient. How do actually ISPs nowadays do? So we have all these transit providers, as you can see here. Does the laser work? No, not at all. But as you can see here, we have all the transit providers. We have probe at each location, and we have, yeah, this is a pretty complicated setup. But we're going to look at each and every solution one by one. So we have one where it's managed by external probes. So you have hosting providers all across the globe. You have static paths to each and every one, and it's going to be probabilistic, which is going to be outside of your operation. So you don't really have a lot of chance to control where the data is going to ingress your network, how it's going to actually get to you. You still will try to manage it in some way or another with the hosting companies that you choose, who are going to provide you these kind of services. But still, in some way or another, it's outside your possibilities. The next one is actually when you have a large probe data set from some companies that you acquire it from. You don't necessarily do any kind of the management. You decide, well, someone else is doing that for me, so probably that's going to be enough, and hope for the best. This has some of the advantages that it's going to require less operation, but I'm going to get to it a little bit later. And we have the third one. I'm going to talk about that a bit more because the project and the customer that actually got to this chose this option where they just set up 2 probes outside the network. So basically they choose 2 hosting providers. They set up themselves the 2 virtual machines, which they constantly pings via different transit providers. So as you can see, they are dedicated to /48, an IPv6 address, to each and every provider, and only those routes are getting announced. So this actually allows them to be scalable, to be broad, and to actually have a static per transit routing. This actually was helping them to see where they might be having issues, problems, congestion, latency, and stuff like that. So this is actually the comparison. I think it gives you quite an easy overview where it's going to be the cost efficiency. So yeah, the solution third has minimal OpEx, but with the other ones you have some subscription fees, some hosting, maintenance, etc. But when it comes to if it's your own props, outside your network, it's the highest independence that you can achieve. If you're just relying on some outside information, data, you don't really have any kind of overview or visibility on that. And when we are talking about the third one, you still have some independency there, but it's not the most independent. And yeah, so what is the problem with probe-only monitoring, and why is it actually important that when it comes to that, we are not only using that? So there's a high development and maintenance cost, obviously, which you might see, which you might also experience yourself. It's complex. There's a lot of people, time involved to set it up, to maintain it. It doesn't necessarily scale efficiently, whether you're maintaining 20, 50, 100 probes. It's not going to be, well, it's going to be taking a few FTEs at least to operate it. If you do not set it up correctly, there might be still some blind spots with some of the operators that you peer with. So for example, you might be able to see your traffic via Cogent, via Telia or Aurelion, Tata, but you don't know what's happening when the traffic goes via Retin or some other providers. And yeah, it's not the most flexible to change. So what we do is basically ourselves, we collect BGP, SNMP flowed information, and we correlate that now with information from our probing network. And also there is some anomaly detection in our network as well that's actually going to give you the information. But I'll get to that. So how do we do that? We are collecting the probe metrics data and the flows records as well, and we basically combine it in our own engine. And this is actually what's happening right now here. So as you can see, this is an alert that we set up ourselves. It actually looks at the latency. So there's, as you can see, there's this bluish line, which is like a river, and there's the actual data, which is the darker bluish line. So we set up thresholds when you should be alerted if something's happening within your network. So you can see that there was this little orangish line happening there. That means that the alert based on our thresholds was triggered, and you receive this alert via email. This is actually how it looks like, and what it actually does is that it directly puts you into our tool, which is going to help you see, okay, so I got an alert based on some performance measurements that I set up myself. I know that there is something going on within my network that shouldn't be happening, so I can just easily go to my tool and see what's actually going on there. It's pretty easy. You can actually use any kind of URL. So if you have some other tools which you also want to correlate the information with, this is actually pretty easy to do. And so this is actually what has happened. So this was set up for Aurelion via a router somewhere within Europe. What has happened here, as you can see, and actually this is really interesting what was going on here. So you can see that there was these graphs before, and if you're just looking at the flow data itself, there's no real change there. So if you're just setting it up based on SNMP or flow information, you're not going to really see what's going on. You won't really get alerted because the pipes are pretty much full all the time with the same amount of data. But because you were alerted based on the probe measurement that you set up, you could actually just go into the tool right away. Because we also correlate DNS information, then you can also see what kind of application took over some others. So at that point in time, as you can see, Valve started coming in as a source of application. So whatever this provider was, G-Core, Cloudflare, doesn't really matter, Steam actually, but via who, that doesn't really matter, started coming in, and they just started to kick out all the other applications. So the traffic plateaued a bit as well, but also some other traffic just went away, and that caused the latency issues as we saw there. So why is it actually important for you to see this kind of alerts? You want to proactively manage your network, and you actually want to do all that's in your power to provide your customers, provide your networks the best experience. And for these reasons, it's important that you can actually see what's going on there. Also, if we can not only look at what's going on the egress side, but the egress, so where the traffic is going to, which regions are actually affected. So we took the same example here, and there was only one region which you can see which was more affected than others when this additional traffic was coming in from this provider. And this is, again, just a correlation of different sources of information. If we're going to be working in silos, you have the probes, you have the flows, you have the BGP, you have the SNMP. All of them are useful information. But you can only really take advantage of all that stuff if you're putting them together, you're combining, and your systems are allowing you to do that. So this is a real-world example. As you saw, Steam, there was a Black Myth Wukong, which was a massive game back in 2025 February. And you can actually just correlate that information yourself. Like, okay, now I know what was going on there. All of the people in my network were playing that game, and that's actually caused a Steam spike, which then caused the rerouting of some other traffic, which was not that mission critical for my network operations. So again, this is just a really cool piece of information for you that if you combine the information, you have the full visibility. But what can network operators do? How can they actually improve their network? How can they actually optimize it? So it's not just gaming events. There's football games. There is so many other stuff that's going on within your network. Sporting events, hockey games, Twitch streams, esports. All of these are important events that might be happening within your network that you actually need the attention for, and you actually want to proactively manage all these capacities. You want to enhance the end user experience and also improve content delivery. If you know where all these applications are hosted, you have a better visibility. When you're looking at just the content delivery network, CDNs, Akamai, Fastly, even Google or Amazon in some regard, if you don't know what applications they are hosting, you're kind of be blind. You don't really know what's going on. You're going to be there guessing, all right, am I doing the right thing? Is it enough if I just put 200 gigs more capacity at that link? Is it going to really solve my problem? Or if still that content is still going to choose G-Core, then it's not really going to help if all the other ones have enough capacity. But in times of when there's too much traffic overflow coming into my network, there's just an overflow. And then I will be stuck there with the same experience as I had before. You need to try to strengthen your network capacity, upgrade this bandwidth, but only the right ones. And this is something that I think all of us are facing every day when we are trying to manage our external connections, when we are trying to manage our external partners. That, yeah, it's hard to get an answer out of Facebook. It's hard to get an answer out of Google. Are they going to finally appear with us at this location, at that location? But in the meantime, you can't sit there blind. You need to proactively try to come up with solutions to your management, to your people. And this is actually why we believe and think that this is something that we actually firmly do and firmly believe that if you have the right visibility, if you have the right tools in your hands, in your power, then you can easily show this information to your management. And also, this is just nice if I just go back to a few slides before. It's way easier for you to actually explain to your management when there are some news outlets complaining that, yeah, gaming was not available, there was some outage in your network, I don't know, Cloudflare was not reachable for a few days. Then you can actually go inside, go to the detail views and tell them, this is actually what was going on. You don't need to be an expert in network operations. You don't necessarily need to know all the details. And I think this is what happens with many of you when you're trying to talk to your managers, CEOs, CDOs, that they don't necessarily need that detailed report, but they do want to understand and they do want to show their customers, their people, everyone that they are talking to, what is exactly going on there. So yeah, I mean, these are the slides that I had. I know there was 2 times, so I don't know where am I right now. It's 15. Okay, so there is plenty of time for questions, obviously. So if there's any questions, please let me know. And thanks for the time.